Hello, dear friends. Thanks so much for coming over. I'm reading out of this. It's a little poem. My mother wrote it. Poetic Voices of America, Fall 1992. You basically submit as many as you can, and they take the ones that they want. So I read the one called Remembering Long Ago. That was page 159, and the other page marked out is called The Artist. The artist, stooped over canvas in brush in hand, he weaves before you a masterpiece of this land. He offers not money, but paints for you, ... gold. Nor hands you fire, but builds castles of ice so cold. His skin is sallow, his hair free and wild. His tenderness and love come alive in the face he paints of a child. And her thoughts flow freely from his soul for you to behold, as on the canvas before him he longingly works and molds. Some see not the grieving person behind his mask, as he gives up all other life to perform his tasks, of putting down all he feels and sees on a picture captured for the rest of eternity. For he is the artist, humble, creative, and caring, or giving, who takes a piece of himself and brings it to the living. His reward is the person who truly understands what kind of gift God puts in his hands. And she didn't dedicate that one to anyone, but I believe it was to my daughter, because when she was a little girl, she was somewhat of an artist. But anyway, my mom, it was not uncommon to, I always remember her as a gardener, just a massive gardener. She could make anything grow. But when I think back as a child in particular, there were boxes and boxes of her poems, and she would, mark out something and write up a margin, and, she would never write something completely even. It was always up, around, and little. She wrote you a letter like that. It was like, you couldn't make heads or tails of it. But it was her way. And no one person is perfect, but I have forgiven her. And in my eyes, when I think of her, she's the crazy redhead that was in the garden with bare feet. Total hippie. I mean, complete hippie. And she was a poet. Not everything rhymed, but you could look at it and see her soul. And there's one, sorry, get the old handkerchief. Sprung a leak. I'm British, stiff upper lip. My mother never knew her parentage until I was 18 years old. And she struggled with that. And there was a picture of her mother. Her mother gave her up. There's a lot of stuff. And there's a picture of my mom, my grandmother, my mother's mother, my aunt, her sister, and just a little gentle bump on her belly. And she was pregnant with my mom, and my mom had written a poem to her mom at that point. And I remember going to the old farm, to the house, and she was with her second husband then, and she said, I have something for you and I want you to read it, and I'm going to give it to you and you can do whatever you want with it. She said, it's yours, I'm not keeping it anymore. This is me releasing it. And she goes, it pertains to some stuff that is very personal, but I think that you would understand, being the oldest child. So I read the poem and I just bawled. I mean, because if you knew my mom's life, you'd understand why she was such an abuser to us. But, at one point, an abuser starts off being a child, an innocent child, looking for their parents to love them and support them. And when my mother's mother, I never referred to her as grandmother, when my mother's mother had my mom and her older sister, she got pregnant by somebody else and decided to give up those two older girls. My mom was one of them. And they were in a courtroom, and she was a scared little tiny girl and wondering where she would go, who was going to take her. And she was looking to her aunties and uncles about who's going to take them home that day, because they thought they would get something to eat. And in fact, the ministry took them into their care at that point. And there was dear little old Granny, her grandmother, my grandmother's, biological grandmother's mother, Granny. And she was bawling. She wanted to take the girls home, but she wasn't in good health. So the ministry took them. And that's why there's that poem with that picture of her pregnant with my mom. And I really did get it. And I guess I'm sharing it because it's a very sad story. It really is. Very tragic. God. You think of a little girl not being loved, but when I was that child, I wasn't either. And so I wanted to share these with you because I wanted to have some better memories and put it down on paper, on film, and journal it, whatever. It's called Poetic Voices of America. Again, her name is Jeanette Carroll Beaudoin, Beaudoin. If you want to look at her poems at all, you might see them online. I don't know, but there was newspapers. I mean, it was very frequent for her to be on the Goldstream Gazette. Yeah, she sent poems like when I was a little kid to the Goldstream Gazette and places like that. But anyway, she was a poet, and I forgot till I saw this book. Paul and I were cleaning out my craft junk room, and I saw it, and I thought, wow, she wasn't just a hippie or a baker of bread, or maker of soup, but she wasn't a mom, not to me, but she was a poet, and I did love it. I too am a writer. I'm not the one who shares her stories with people on paper and pen. I'm more of a verbal storyteller. I do write stories. I write short stories. I haven't written in a long time. But this was her gift. And I want to honor that. I would say sorry for getting emotional, but I'm not sorry for anything. So there we go. That was my mother, Jeanette Carroll Morris, not Beaudoin.